This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSPORT Fan Network. TalkSPORT. Powered by fans.
Styles with a save. Trent for the second here. A classic counter-attack, and Gibbs White puts Nottingham Forest 2 ahead. Here's Wood. 1-0 Forest. Has made an even bigger difference there. Nottingham Forest have snatched the lead at Anfield.
Hello, welcome back to Red Side of Trent, here to preview the Newcastle United game as Forest head to St James's at the weekend after a disappointing loss in the Europa League and a disappointing overall Ange Postecoglou reign. And I'm not very looking forward to this, but I am delighted to be joined by Jon Lane of the True Faith Newcastle United podcast. John, how are you?
Yeah, good. Really happy with our European performance in midweek. I think we weren't overly sure how that was going to go, to be fair. I'd done an opposition view, and basically the guy was a Belgian football expert and was just like, Union are really good. They've won basically they hadn't lost since April or something. And we turned up and it was men against boys, and we didn't look like we were too laboured in that performance. And I think it was a sign of, and I'm not saying we are right, but it was a sign of what an elite Champions League side does. They turn up to a side they should beat and beat them comfortably, and then rotate and do whatever they need to do to get through. And you can't 4-0's our biggest ever win in the European Cup. So, we can't be too unimpressed with that. And I think it was really important in the context of our Premier League season as well, because, we've lost against Arsenal and Liverpool at home. We've drawn against Bournemouth and Leeds away. We beat Forest narrowly at home. So it's nice to see us coming into some form, unfortunately for yourselves, coming into this game. And there should be plenty for us to get our teeth stuck into. So, yeah. I'm good, but mainly because the football is really kind of feels like we're starting to, pick up our season, I suppose.
I feel like I misheard you. Did you say Forest at home? We're playing this weekend, John. Who did you beat at home?
Sorry.
No.
So we beat Wolves. Sorry, yeah, I might have done. Yeah, so we beat Wolves narrowly a couple of weeks ago, and Voldemort scored his debut.
I'm pretty sure I just heard him say Forest. Maybe a little bit.
I apologise.
Maybe I live in a different universe. I mean, you're probably preempting it, to be honest. We're all preempting it because it's just been an absolute nightmare and a car crash. And I'm sure when people head over to the True Faith podcast to probably listen to myself, there, it'll probably be kind of a glowing review of what's to come for yourselves, to be fair, at the weekend as Ange Postecoglou rolls into Newcastle and kind of just gives you 3 points. But let's talk about the Arsenal game as well. Obviously lost there 2-1 late on. There was a bit of beef there between players and everything. Gabriel especially. I mean, I'm not sure how his elbow on Walter Made don't get kind of looked at, to be honest. It's very. I suppose you can go do that nowadays in the Premier League, and VAR just kind of just dismiss it. But talk to us about the game in an overview.
I think the most encouraging thing about those games that we've lost, like when you look at Arsenal, Liverpool, and Barcelona, we're in all those games. Barcelona only once we score the goal, once they get there first, they're kind of pretty comfortable, and then Gordon nicks one towards the end, and then all of a sudden you think, oh, we might have a chance of doing something. But Liverpool and Arsenal were legitimately in those games till the very last minute of the game, and that's the disappointing bit from that point of view. But on balance, Arsenal deserved to win the game. I still think we should have had a penalty. In balance, I think it was probably a bit harsh to overturn the penalty that was given against Pope. He does get the ball first, but for me, that's not clear and obvious, Adam. I think it looked a penalty. It was given. They've reviewed it, and yeah, he's touched the ball, but he still takes the man out in the box. It's for me, I think we were quite lucky for that to go our way. The reason they haven't reviewed the Voldemort incident is quite simple: is that he didn't fall over, which just well. And let's be honest about this. Pundits will say, "Oh, it's a disgrace when players go down when they shouldn't go down," and it is. But that demonstrates why players go down, because if they don't, you don't get the referee decision. If you remember the first game of last season, we played Brentford at no, we didn't. We played Southampton at St James's Park, and Brereton Diaz went down like a sack of spuds when him and Cher came together. Now Cher barely touches him, but he thinks, all right, this is an opportunity for me to go down, and Cher gets sent off. So they need, if they want it to change, they need to try and make some of these decisions contextually. If you like hit someone in the face, regardless of whether you go down or not, how's that not a red card? It baffles me. So yeah, some decisions could have gone our way, but I think on the balance of play, Arsenal were the better side, deserved to win it. So from that side, I don't have complaints, but yeah, it could have been a very, very different game had key decisions, a couple of key decisions gone our way, even though we got one, I think.
Yeah, I've talked to you about obviously the Alexander Isak saga. I mean, has that completely disrupted Newcastle's start to the season? Would you say? Because it has been a bit of a slow starter for yourselves. Normally, I don't know if Newcastle are normally like this, but they always seem to be hot starters for as far as I'm concerned. But you might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. But it seems abnormally slow from an outsider's point of view.
I'll be honest with you, Adam. Normally, like we've tended to be pretty slow, actually, in fairness. But I mean, I've forgotten about who that player was, to be honest. Thanks for. No, in all seriousness, that had a massive impact, and still kind of is. But actually, now it's having a huge impact on Liverpool, which is class. Because when you consider he basically went on strike, and this is what really frustrates me is you'll hear Slot talk about saying, "Oh, well, obviously he hasn't had much of a pre-season, so we're trying to get these minutes in his legs." It's like it's his fault. He could have had a pre-season. He could have been playing games. Ultimately, we're not going to sell him unless there's an offer that we're happy to accept, and we're well within our rights to do that. The same way that Marinakis was with Gibbs White, to think, actually, let's see if I can get him back to the table and get him to agree a contract, and we can move on from all of this. And Gahey's another example of that. Like, these clubs are well within their right to keep hold of their talent. But we needed that. We needed replacements. We tried to replace Isak multiple times in the summer. You think about Liam Delap, João Pedro, Sheshko, Ekitike, ironically, Ekitike, all these players we tried to get and couldn't get. And eventually we went for Voltemada, because at the point where it was very clear that it was going to be unpalatable to keep a hold of Isak and try and reintegrate him. And I think the fans got to a point where they turned on him, and I'll not repeat what they were calling him against Leeds, but it's something that will follow him round. And I really hope that we save those songs for when we play Liverpool, and we don't sing them all season. But I have a horrible feeling we're going to sing a spattering of those songs all year. But it has had a massive disruptive impact. It's then meant, obviously, Wissa we've signed, but then got an injury on national duty, so he's not kicked a ball for us, and sounds like he's not going to be playing for us until November at the very earliest now. Voltemade is, I think, coming to terms with the Premier League, but he is a talent, and you can tell he is now. I knew he was a talent because Newcastle don't spend 70 million on anyone. They really think about how they spend their money. But he's a very technical player, and you can see some players when they touch the ball, you can tell they're a talent. And he's got that skill. And what's also very encouraging is his first 2 goals for us were headers, and we were told that he wasn't a target man by 2 German football experts. So
what do they know?
And himself as well. Like, he said that, I'm not really a target man. I'm more kind of bring players into play. And you really saw that on Wednesday night when the ball was getting played into him, and he had Alanga on one side and Gordon on the other, and you can almost see that side evolving in that way. So and is the finish for the first one's a very good one. Now, a lot of people on first glance were like, "Oh, it was just a deflection, and he didn't know much about it." But really, if you watch it again, he knows exactly what he's doing. Which says to me that we have got a special player, and we were never going to replace Isak with someone as good as Isak now, but we have what we needed to do is try and replace him with someone who had a higher potential ceiling than Isak, and I think we may have done that.
Yeah, I mean, I watched him for the under-21s for Germany in the summer, and I thought he was really good. Like, for a tall guy as well, he's very technical. He's drops into the hole really nicely. Got quick feet. He kind of reminds me a bit of like a Kane type striker, where he will drop it and he'll put passes out wide and sort of stuff, and like get involved in build up, like you say. So I actually thought he was going to Bayern Munich, because they were actually really heavily reporting on the commentary when England were playing. It was like, oh yeah, he's going to Bayern Munich. It's just this thing. Bayern Munich just sweep up all the talent in Germany. That's just what they do. And I was like, and then when Newcastle signed him, I was like, oh, he's still available. Like, fair enough. And I think he's a great signing. I think one of my mates said he looks like a tall Rudy Voller. So that's something to throw at him, I guess.
That wouldn't be too bad, would it? I think quickly on the Bayern Munich stuff. So the story there is that Bayern wouldn't go to the fee.
Right.
So Bayern had offered a certain amount and they wouldn't go above that. And actually, Karl-Heinz Rummenigge in the last week or so is called branded Newcastle idiots for spending 70 million quid on him. And it's like sour grapes a little bit. Like, ultimately, look, a player's worth what a club is prepared to pay for them. And the market dictates. Now, there's two key things in the market. One, everyone knew he needed a striker desperately, because it was quite clear that Alexander Isak did not want to stay. And we were trying to sign strikers all summer. And that, at this point, we still hadn't signed Callum Wilson's replacement. And then the second part of it is, like, you've got to... He was the top scorer for Germany in the Euros under 21s. And there was clearly... the club didn't want to just get rid of him for nothing. Like, Stuttgart wanted to get a decent fee for him. And I think we've made inquiries earlier in the summer. They've given us a fee. We've walked away. And then we've gone in and we've said, right, we'll pay the fee that you quoted earlier. And then that's when it could have happened really quickly. And funnily enough, it was like that with Isak. We'd gone in for him. They had said he's going to cost 67 million quid or whatever it was. We've gone, no, we're not paying that. We've walked away. Callum Wilson walks off with a hamstring injury, and we're in for him, and it happens really quickly. So I think that's what's happened.
Yeah, he started off really well. The only bad thing, and I think all Newcastle fans will say this, it's the whole going on strike thing from Isak. Like, players shouldn't be able to do that. They're contracted to a football club. They've signed the contract. That's on them. Like, that doesn't really sit well with me whatsoever. But we've got to talk about Anthony Elanga, John, because obviously we've got that connection there. What have you made of his early start to Newcastle? I've seen a lot of hot and cold opinions on him since he's gone to the Toon.
Yeah, he's a hell of an athlete. I think that's really clear. That's the first thing. I remember we went to the pre-season, to one of the pre-season days. It was the weekend, and the women's football was played against Atleti women, and then we played Atleti men in the afternoon at like 4. So it was like 1 o'clock for the women. Anyway, Elanga runs onto the pitch and he like surges towards the Gallagher end, like pre-game, and I'm like, straight away I was like, oh god, he's quick. And that was the first thing that resonated with us. His end product has been hit and miss. I think in terms of his like kind of his crossing and what have you. His best performances for us have been in the Champions League, no doubt, Wednesday night and against Barcelona. I think he's just got a certain appetite for those games. I think he just kind of, that's what's really motivating him. He's not been starting like the games that we've had, and there's a bit of a theory of, is he playing Murphy because he thinks that Elanga can make a bit of an impact off the bench because he'll be quite fresh, and we all know how fast he is. But actually, what I think we're finding is that when Elanga's coming on off the bench, because he's not being part of the game, he's taken some time to kind of warm into it. So I think he's still finding his feet. But I think if you ask most Newcastle fans what their first choice 3 up top would be, it would be Gordon, Waltmarder, and Elanga. He has had a couple of games where he came off the bench against Leeds, and again, his crossing wasn't great and was right in front of the away end, which sometimes just doesn't help. So I've been really pleased with what we've seen so far, but we also have to appreciate, like, players can't just walk in and just perform straight away. They're going to take some time to adapt, even if they're Premier League proven, because Eddie's got a certain level that we go to. So there is that end of it as well. That it's very easy to kind of say, oh well, he's not performing, we've spent this money on him. Like, give the kid a chance. Like, he's been at the club 3 months. So.
Well, cue him getting a goal involvement on Sunday. So
exactly, yeah, it was great. It was a great assist.
Yeah. What's your thoughts been on this whole Ange Postecoglou Forest kind of situation, John, from an outsider's point of view? Because I know we've corresponded on messages and stuff, and I've gave you a bit of an opinion and everything. But what's your forming of opinion of this?
I mean, I still think Marinakis is a nutter.
That's just a given.
That goes without saying, in it. To look at you, there's something's clearly happened in terms of Nuno. Either when Nuno gave that press conference and basically said that the relationship wasn't right with the owner, at that stage, like, it was only a matter of time before he was going to go. It was just about how he was going to go and when he was going to go, and everything else. And you wonder whether, and this hasn't really kind of been reported, but I wonder if maybe West Ham was always there in the background and that was a job he fancied, and he thought there's just a little bit less kind of noise going on there. Now, I think West Ham were in massive trouble personally. Like, let's be honest. But could he go there? Could he solid them up? Could he put them in a position where they could stay in the league? Possibly. But the relationship was clearly broken. Now, it seems to be this relationship with Edu, who was, clearly a very good sporting director at Arsenal. That seems to be the reports generally. But that seems to be kind of where the relationship breakdowns come in. Going from Nuno to Ange, just that bit, I just can't get my head round. I don't mind Nuno. I don't mind Ange as a manager generally. I don't. I have concerns that he is a bit like Anarim, a bit wedded to his system, and won't kind of. He looks at it as, rather than as a philosophy being a guideline, more of a philosophy being a script, and, well, this is what we're going to do, whether it's getting the results or not. This is how we play. This is us, all this kind of thing. And that's dangerous. But the fact that it's from kind of Nuno ball to Ange ball, that's just like, how are these players going to do that? And it does put you in a position where, like, you're starting to think, well, actually, is the target to finish 17th? And it'll be a crying shame, because there's been so much hard work that's gone on at the club to get you in the position that you're in at the moment, where you're a European club. You had a fantastic season last year, to qualify for Europe. Obviously, at the time, everyone thought it'd be the Conference League. You've ended up in the Europa League, and, like, let's be honest, I think most Forest fans would have expected you to win against Midtjylland, like, playing them. So the fact that you've come out of that, with a defeat, and I can't remember how you did in your first European game. Draw
2-2 at Betis,
Good.
and should have won. We played really well. It's like probably 45, 60 minutes of Ange football I've seen that we played really well. Probably the best football I've seen for a long, long time. And you kind of go, oh, after that, you're thinking, well, we can only get better. We'll start winning games. And honestly, it's just been an absolute car crash. He is stubborn. He's changing too many players. It's like five changes every game. You can't do that. Like, it just doesn't work like that. And then I know players have been unavailable and stuff, but it's just chaos. His inability to defend set pieces. We've literally become, like, possibly one of the worst teams at defending set pieces. I just fear with Walter Made and Dan Burns high. I mean, I'm definitely putting on like a 5 for one of them to score a header. I'm not going to lie.
I put it on Voltamade, don't put it on Burn, because Burn, like, for his height, he has scored the odd headed goal, but he is not, like, doesn't tend to be our biggest threat from set pieces in terms of actually being the person who he's very good at disrupting.
Yeah. Did he score? Did he score in the League Cup final a header?
Yeah, he did. But I'm just saying, like, but Dan Burn isn't a great goal scorer. He's a scorer of great, like, important goals. So
of course.
So if you think his goals for us, like, off the top of my head, Leicester in the quarterfinal of the League Cup in 23. He scored against Brighton at St James's, which basically was the game that secured us Champions League football that year. PSG in the Champions League, and Liverpool in the League Cup final. So he when he does score, it tends to be a big one. I think he did score against Ipswich in the league last year, but that was a bit of an anomaly. The other games seem to be like massive occasions. And it is, but he's not necessarily always that threat. You also have to remember that goal in the League Cup final. Who was marking him? Like, it was the shortest player they had, was like the guy who ended up marking him because of the zonal system.
This is why I hate zonal marking. I tweeted this out when we've conceded the first 2 goals to Midtjylland. I'm just like, why are people bothering with zonal marking? It doesn't work. It's a load of rubbish. I've never liked it in my life. It doesn't ever compute with me. I'm old school. Just man mark, like, centre half against their best header of a ball and go from there. It just doesn't make sense. But you guys must be rubbing your hands of us visiting St James's. Obviously, last season was a bit of a ding dong. You went 4-1 up after we opened the score, and you scored like I think 4 in about 12 minutes, and then second half we made it a little bit nervy, scoring 2 goals like fairly late on, but didn't have enough time. I mean, I remember Jared Garrett playing like 3 minutes and was all outraged, but you know what, we didn't deserve anything out of the game personally. I thought we were poor, but you must be looking forward to it with the turmoil that's going off Trent's side.
I think there hasn't been a much better time to play here, but I also thought that on Boxing Day the other year when you rocked up and beat with 3-1 and like Chris Wood was playing like prime Messi. So like we can predict these things, but let's be honest, like you've got to turn up, you've got to perform, you've got to get the result, and Ange is due some kind of result. Now, don't get me wrong, it would be a huge upset if you get 3 points at St James's. We haven't. Our defensive record's been very good, with the exception of Bradford. The only other teams we've conceded goals against this season are Barcelona, Liverpool, and Arsenal. So when you look at it from that point of view, we're defending really well. Though we don't have Tino Livramento, we're not going to have him for like 8 weeks or so. So there's a lot of debate about who we're going to play at left back. Now Dan Burn has had the nod to play at left back a couple of times.
Lewis Hall not back. I thought Lewis Hall was
back.
So
Lewis Hall is and he isn't, right. So he is back, but the club are managing his minutes. Now Howe spoke about this in his presser today, and what he said was that Hall was like, he basically had to said, I need to look after him, I need to be careful with him, like, and all this kind of thing. And the noise I was getting very much is it's not so much that he's picking down Burn at left back ahead of Lewis Hall. It's more like he's trying not to play Lewis Hall too much because he doesn't feel 100% in certain elements. Was how it kind of like came across. So I think they're just treating him with kid gloves a bit. But the dynamics changed a bit now, I think, because you've got because Tino's out. The other thing to bear in mind is that Botman and Chow are doing really well at centre half. He likes to play Dan Burn because of his leadership qualities. Dan Burn hasn't done a lot wrong pretty much since he moved back to left centre half. And since then he's played incredibly well at that position. Obviously, he's played his way into the England squad. So there's all this stuff going on. And there are theories there that, and I may have spouted one of these theories that essentially Dan Burn's one of the first names on the team sheet, and then it's kind of like gets moved around to make sure he fits in. Now, I remember him playing left back. Thankfully, he was against Alanga, who now plays for us. But I remember him getting absolutely torn to shreds against, your fullbacks and against Luton's fullbacks or wingers or what have you. So that's the bit that terrifies me a little bit. But if you're going to play that high line and we've got the pace of possibly Gordon and Langer, but if not, it'll probably be Gordon and Murphy. That's kind of where we have our opportunities. And then actually we've been pretty solid in the middle. Chow and Botman are fantastic central defenders. Chow went as soon as he got his first minutes against Barcelona, you're like, wow, actually we've got a hell of a player here. And I think Fabian Schär's going to have to work really, really hard to get his way back into the team.
Yeah.
So that's the interesting bit for us is who's going to play in that back line and where's Dan Burn going to play? Well, because Dan Burn will probably play. It's whether we play a back 5 or whether we play a back 4 and he plays at left back.
Yeah, our problem hasn't been the defensive high line. It's just been defending, like in general, set pieces, and then like real bad like individual mistakes, like loose passing, etc. So people might be like, "Oh, why are you moaning so much about Ange?" The problem is it's a results business, isn't it? Like Nuno was getting results, although like towards the end, and everyone keeps saying, "Oh, we've won like 3 games out of our last 17 games with Nuno," but like we had a system in place. We knew how I was going to play. It just needed to develop a little bit more, and it did against Brentford. But we digress. What team are you kind of expecting to start Sunday then, John? Having that conversation.
I hope 4-3-3. Because I think that's where we look our strongest. I think that's when we look like we're on the front foot a bit, and he has done that at home, like pretty consistently. He's played 4-3-3. We thought it was a 5 against Arsenal, and it wasn't. He played, as I said before, played Burn at left back. So I anticipate it's going to be similar to that side. I think you'll play Pope in goal, back 4 of Burn, Botman, Chow, Trippier. and then a middle three of Tonali, Joe Linton, and Bruno, which picks itself, as you can imagine. And then front three, I think he'll play Gordon, Voltemada, and I think he'll start Murphy. I'd like to see him start Alanga. I don't think he will. The only other thing he might do, and this is a bit of a curveball, is he might play a back four of Burn, Chow, Botman, and Share, and play Chow at right back.
Right.
So he may do that. We saw a little bit of that on Wednesday night. I think it very much depends on whose minutes he's trying to manage. But the other thing we have to remember is that Share doesn't play international football anymore. Neither does Kieran Trippier. We're coming into an international weekend. International break, I should say.
Yeah.
So it's going to be kind of considering that. But I'm kind of the opinion of, I'm not really asked if we knock these players before the international break. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not us that's going to suffer for the next 2 weeks. So I'm not too worried about us resting players that are then going to go and travel. But, he's going to be considering little bits of rotation here and there. But we've got a bit of a squad now to rotate. And it's quite nice because we just don't have the same kind of drop-offs that we've been used to having.
Yeah, sure. I can kind of agree with that from an outsider's point of view. Looking at Newcastle's team, it looks strong. I mean, Jacob Ramsey's not even getting into that team at the moment, and he's
injured.
He's always injured as well. Yeah,
yeah. I mean, he's played 90 minutes for us. He played 45 minutes when he came off the bench, and he played 45 minutes where he started.
Did you get him to accompany Chris Willock Joe Willock on the physio's bench or something? Is that what it is? Was that just to get him a friend?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, look, I think the thing with Jacob Ramsey as well is he has this reputation around his injuries. But if you look at the kind of injuries he's had, he's had like one soft tissue injury. Everything else has kind of been like an impact injury or something like that. So I think it's just it's just sod's law, right? And when he came in, it was interesting because I think a lot of us saw him as playing, like, basically being that player to kind of replace Joe Linton and being that fourth choice midfielder. And then against Leeds, Howe started him at left wing, which really surprised me because when you've got Gordon and you've got Barnes, you've got Joe Linton who can play there as well. It was kind of like, God, you're playing Ramsey there, but then you could see why he played him there because actually he's a really, really effective player.
Yeah, he's intelligent.
Really solid.
Yeah. Score prediction for Sunday, John?
I went 2-0 Newcastle. I think
that's been quite fine, to be honest.
Well, I think mine was the lowest score prediction on our preview, just to reassure you. But no, I think I think we're defending quite well. I think from that point of view, I'm not worried about us conceding. And I think going forward, I think we'll do enough. The thing is we're still not in that point where we're clicking, where we're scoring loads of goals in other games. And I mean this with the greatest respect. The two teams who scored 4 goals against Bradford and Union, and they weren't, obviously they weren't at the same class that Newcastle were. So I think 2-0, but a comfortable 2-0. I don't think we'll look at risk of losing the game. And we've done well against Ange's teams at St James's Park before. So
yeah. You were like 5-0 up really quick against Spurs. On Super Sunday.
That was pre-Ange. That was.
Was that pre-Ange? Was it?
That was the caretaker manager who then lost his job. I don't know if you remember.
Was after Conte, was it?
Yeah. So Conte had gone. They'd left this guy in charge, and then we were 5-0 up within 20 minutes. Beat them 6-1 that day, and then he ended up losing his job after that game, and then they brought another caretaker in. So yeah,
blimey,
it's interesting.
Right. Well, hopefully Forest somehow come up with a surprise. It would be very Forest to lose to Midtjylland and then somehow get a result at St James, as it just would. That's just how our club works, unfortunately. So if anyone's enjoyed listening, drop us a like and subscribe. I do apologise that it's been a bit negative for myself. I'm just trying to be realistic going into the fixture. We was realistic this morning when we did our live pod as record this on the Friday. It's just how I'm feeling at the time. So hopefully no one takes it out on me too personally for being negative. But if you do enjoy it, as I said, drop a like, subscribe, and we'll tune in for the review on Sunday afternoon. I'd have thought, but until then, come on, you Reds.